Hello, my dear student. How are you doing today? Are you doing good? That's what I like to hear. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Prof. Kyle. I am a professional English teacher with more than 7 years teaching English to Latin Americans. And I'm speaking in English right now because this is a simple English video. Because if you are a smart person, you know that the best way to learn any language is not with constant grammar drills, constant grammar lessons. Grammar can help you, but the best way to learn a language is with real language. In this case, real English. Now, of course, it's difficult if you're a beginner or pre-intermediate to consume real English, because most real English is too complicated. There's lots of slang, lots of vocabulary that you're not going to know. But luckily for you, there are teachers such as myself making simple language videos for language students like you, so that they can begin consuming real language from the very beginning. So that's what we're doing right now. This is real English. And if you want some help, turn on the subtitles. They should be right here. Now, in this simple English video, I want to talk about how I learned to drive, because it can be very different than in other parts of the world. Now, if you don't know, I'm Canadian. So what I'm about to tell you will be very similar to the United States, but I'm not completely sure if it's the same. The United States and Canada were both very decentralized countries, and what does that mean? That means that in Canada, each province, and in the United States, each state can have different rules and regulations for things such as learning how to drive. So, just so you know, my experience may be different than the experience of other people from Canada and the United States. But at the same time, if you're from somewhere outside of Canada and the United States, how we do it will probably be very different. So how did I learn to drive? So I am from the province of Alberta in Canada. And in my province, maybe it has changed, but when I was a teenager, what happens is that when you are 14 years old, you can get your learner's license. Now, what is a learner's license? A learner's license is more or less a regular driving license, driver's license. I actually don't know what we call it. I think it might be different in each part of the English speaking world, but we'll say a driving license or a driver's license. But it doesn't mean that you can drive by yourself whenever you want. No. With a learner's license, when you're 14 years old, if you get it, and I will talk about how to get it in 1 second, it allows you to drive with somebody, an adult, who also has a driver's license. Well, not also has a driver's license, but somebody who has a full driver's license. So normally that person is going to be your mom or your dad, but it could also be your uncle, it could be an older brother. Basically any adult with a full driver's license can be in the vehicle with you, helping you learn how to drive. Now, how do you get this learner's license? Because they don't just send it to you in email. I would say one thing I like about Canada when it comes to driving is that we're very strict about having good drivers. I've been to other parts of the world and the drivers aren't very good. I think some of them are driving without a license. Others have not really learned very well how to drive because the rules and regulations aren't very good. For example, I'm in Colombia right now, and I do believe if you want to legally drive every day a vehicle, you have to take 25 hours of classroom theory, which to me seems ridiculous and too much. And I've talked to some Colombians and they say that not everybody does the 25 hours. But I do think if you are a regular Colombian citizen, you do the 25 hours of classroom theory. But in Canada, how it works is you get a book with the rules and regulations of driving. You take a few weeks, you take a month to read the entire book, to study. When I was a teenager, there was also a website where you could do some practice tests to make sure that you understood the knowledge in the book. And after studying the book, you go to, normally it's a car insurance company. It could also be, normally a car insurance company. Some of the car insurance companies are really big, some are small. In my town, it was a small car insurance company that was in charge of what's the word? I forgot the word in English. I'm gonna say for now, of giving the exams. And in my case, when I was 14 years old, I went to the car insurance place. I made an appointment. I went to the appointment to write the exam. There really wasn't that much writing. The exam was, I think, all multiple choice. How many questions? I don't remember. I think there may have been either 50 to 100 questions, multiple choice. And you have, again, I don't remember. It's been a long time. I'm 31 years old now. But I think you have between an hour and 2 hours to finish the test. So you do the test, it's multiple choice, you hand it in. After you finish, they mark it. I believe they mark it right away because it's multiple choice, it's really easy to do. So you just wait in the reception, the lobby of the car insurance office, and you wait for your results. They call your name, you go to the desk, the receptionist, and she gives you your mark. If you passed, they give you, again, it's been a long time, I'm guessing they give you some forms to fill out, you hand them in, and then they give you a temporary learner's license that you can use to begin practicing right away. And when I was a teenager, within 2 weeks you got a plastic card learner's license, which you kept with you. And from that moment on, you could start practicing driving with an adult with a valid driver's license. And that's what I did. So for 2 years, from 14 years old to 16 years old, whenever I had the opportunity, I would drive. And usually, I was with my mother. I spent most of my childhood with my mother. My father was either working or at home, and we really didn't do that much together. So yeah, usually when I was learning to drive, it was with my mother. And my mother is a cowgirl, if you don't already know from my other videos. So we always had really big trucks that could pull horses in a trailer. So when I learned how to drive with a big 1-ton diesel truck, which was good and bad. Good because it's difficult to drive, and if you can drive a big truck, it's really easy to drive smaller vehicles like cars or smaller trucks. But bad because it is pretty scary being 14 years old and you're behind the wheel of this huge truck. Luckily, in my case, I never had any accidents during my learning process from 14 to 16. So that was good. And of course, I learned from my mom, and I love my mother. She was my coach when I played curling. She also coached me a little bit in volleyball. She was very involved in my life. My father, of course, was in the picture. He was there in the family, but he was never directly involved in my upbringing like my mother was. But one thing about my mother is that she can be a little bit intense when it comes to teaching or coaching, especially when it's her own child. So for me, I was already a pretty good driver. You know, I would drive, and I wasn't really in a panic. a little bit scared because I was driving a big vehicle. But for me, I was a good driver. But my mom would be, whoa, 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 slow down, slow down, slow. What are you doing? What are you doing? She would always be panicking when I was driving, which was a little bit annoying. It didn't always happen, but she was constantly making comments about driving too fast, driving too slow, not braking soon enough, and it could get a little bit irritating. At the same time, because of her, I learned how to drive. Now, let's keep on moving on in the process of getting a full driver's license. So when you're 16, when you turn 16, you can now get your full driver's license. Now, I don't completely remember, but I believe I didn't have to take another written test. I believe you only have to do the written test when you're 14 years old, but when you're 16, the test you gotta take is a real life driving test. So you're actually driving a vehicle. Now, to do this, you don't have to take driving lessons. If you wanted to, you could go directly to the insurance office again, make an appointment, and do the driver's test without taking any driving lessons. But many Canadians, many Americans, they will take driving lessons either because they don't have much experience driving or because it's a test and you want to make sure you're doing everything correct for the test, because if you don't pass, then you have to do the test again, and the test does cost money. So obviously you don't want to be wasting money, and you don't want to be waiting months and months to get your driver's license. So in my case, I decided to take some driving lessons from a local driving school. And in my town, the course, the program for driving was 8 lessons of, I believe, 1 hour. And yeah, it was good. I had a 50-year-old woman. She sounded like she smoked too many cigarettes. She had really short hair. Kind of seemed like your typical small town, heavy smoking woman. And I took 8 lessons. They weren't really memorable. All she did was teach me how to drive defensively and make sure I didn't drive crazy so that when I did take the test, I would pass. And yeah, so for most of my lessons, she would just give me tips on, hey, if you don't stop at the stop sign, you're gonna fail the test. So because of the driving lessons, I basically learned how to not fail the test, and also how to do some things which can be really complicated, such as parallel parking. So I did the driving lessons, 8 lessons, and then I booked my appointment to take my driver's test. I took my driver's test. It was a little bit intimidating. If you've ever watched any American movies where they have a driving test, it's very similar to like in the movies. You have somebody you don't know beside you with a clipboard and a piece of paper, and you're driving. They give you instructions, and they're taking notes the entire time. So obviously, it's a little bit nerve-wracking. You don't know if you're doing something wrong. You don't know if you're doing something right. You don't know why they're writing. They don't talk to you. It's a little bit scary. It's a little bit scary. So I did the test. I didn't know if I did something wrong, and I automatically failed. But after, I can't remember how long the test is, maybe half an hour. But I pulled up to the insurance company. We stopped, and right then, right there, the examiner, he tells you if you passed or you didn't pass. So in my case, he just told me a few things. He said, you didn't do this right, you didn't do this right. And me a little bit nervous. Ooh, did I get my driver's license or not? And then he told me, but you got your driver's license. Maybe he said, congratulations. The driving examiners are very, very cold people, so I don't know if they said congratulations. I think he just gave me a piece of paper, and with the piece of paper, you go back into the car insurance company and you go through the process. Again, I don't remember. You fill out some forms, you get a temporary driver's license, and from that moment on, you're allowed to drive all by yourself. And in my case, in about 2 weeks, I got my plastic driver's license. Now, the process still isn't over. This might be interesting for you. And for me, the system works really well in Canada, or at least my province. So with a driver's license, you have something called demerits. Now, demerits, what are they? They're basically points. They're points, and what happens is that if you get a ticket from a police officer, every time you get a ticket, points are taken off of your driver's license. So if you get all of your points taken off of your driver's license, you are suspended from driving. They take away your driver's license and you are not allowed to drive. I can't remember if it's for a few months or an entire year, but basically they punish you for being a bad driver. So with a full driver's license in my province of Alberta, you have 15 demerits, or I don't know if it's demerits or points. I think when they take away a point, it's a demerit, but they might be called demerits when they're not taken. I think they might be called points when they're not taken away. But anyways, you have 15 points demerits on your license. But when you're 16 to 18, you only have 8 demerits. And again, it's kind of like they want to make sure little by little that you're a good driver. So first you get the learner's license, and with your learner's license you always have to be with an adult, and that ensures that there are no accidents. Well, less likely that there are going to be accidents because you're with an adult at all times. And then when you're 16, they're confident that because of your experience driving with an adult and because you passed a driver's test that you could probably drive. But again, young people are a little bit crazy. Sometimes they get the freedom to drive by themselves and they start speeding, they start racing, they start doing crazy things. So they give you less demerits so that they can make sure that only safe new drivers are on the streets, and any bad new drivers, they're taken off the streets a lot sooner. But this process only lasts 2 years. So you basically have a full license, but it's kind of like a mini license because you have 8 demerits. But if you are able to pass those 2 years without losing all your points, all your demerits on your license, then you go to the car insurance company, they take a picture for the license, and you get another license. And this is your full license, which has 15 points demerits. And basically from that moment on, you are an adult driver and you have full responsibilities to drive whenever you want, wherever you want, with all the points that an adult has. And that more or less is how we learn to drive and how we get our driver's license in Canada, and very similar probably in the United States. So that's my story. That's what you need to know. How do you learn to drive where you live? Tell me down below if the process is similar, if it's different, or if you have any other questions about learning to drive in Canada. And I'll probably leave some questions down below in the comments, so if you want some extra English practice, you can respond to the questions I leave you. And hopefully you learn some new vocabulary. Hopefully you feel like your English has improved. Thank you for watching. If you want more simple English videos like this, you need to give me a like, you need to subscribe, and you need to click on the bell button to receive notifications when I release new videos, because I only do this for love. Only for love. And that's it. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next simple English video, my dear student.